Hello. I've got to admit that the passage today is not one of my favourites. There are a lot of raw, not very nice emotions in here. There's embarrassment about being separated and ostracised by the community, a feeling of rejection. I just don't like the feelings that it builds up. But as I read through it at this particular time, it matches with some of the feelings that I'm going through. Being cut off from people, of the enormity of something that I can't quite fully understand, and of time seeming to stand still. I'm also increasingly becoming aware of how things will never be the same again. That feeling of connection that I had, of predictability, of safety around knowing how things are, is being challenged. This woman had been cut off and separated for 12 years. I've just managed 12 days in semi-isolation because I'm still up rotating into my job as a teacher, and that's very strange. Even when I'm at work, I'm only with 2 other adults, and that leaves the rest of us as staff all feeling separated from each other. And we're working quite hard to keep that feeling of unity among our staff. I'm sure we've all experienced that feeling, and we're all coming to terms with it in different ways. I know there's lots of grieving happening because of this. During the week before schools closed, every morning as I walked to work, I'd feel this wave of sadness wash over me. Just for some reason, it seemed to hit me as I walked in. I think it was part of an acknowledgement that things were never going to be the same, and almost a preparation for the situation to come. And as a family, we're currently feeling that separation acutely with elderly relatives and our daughter living in other parts of the country. Knowing that we can't physically be there if we need to be really hurts. I know we're going through this roller coaster of emotions at this time, and I know everybody's experiencing it in different ways. It's a shake-up of priorities, and I think we have to be gentle with ourselves, to acknowledge when those emotions come, and if we can, turn them to prayer, even if we haven't got any words. What we're all craving is connection. We might be craving physical touch or face-to-face contact, or just being in a room with other people without having to be on our guard of not being too close. At work, we've coined the phrase bubble school because we're trying to keep out of each other's bubble of space. That's really tough with children. We all need that sense of connection, whether we're introverted or extroverted. I think that's one of the reasons that God made church, a place where we can have connection with God and with one another. And what this woman craved was healing, and because of her separation from society, that came through connection in a very real way when she touches Jesus' cloak. I think that the way we get through this time as Christians is to find that connection with Jesus, to sustain us through, and then that will flow through us to others that we can reach out to. The way we connect may well could change. I'm finding it really hard at the moment to use words to pray, but I'm looking a lot at the sketches of Charlie Mackesy and finding real comfort in those, and sometimes just looking at them and using them as a feeling of prayer. But for others, it might be a comfort in scripture. They might find that there are particular verses that really help us to connect with God. Or it might be a song, or it might be some liturgy that we know. There are just 3 things that have jumped out to me from the passage that maybe we can think about. The first is that as in the situation we're shown a picture of lots of people all gathering around Jesus, but that Jesus was present. He hadn't cut himself off. He wasn't away with just his disciples at this point. He was present in society. Now, this is something that we're finding really hard to do at the moment. How can we be present when we're all called to be isolated or separated? And I think that's where God's blessing and God's understanding comes. His ability to show us ways of being creative. I've been part of lots of Zoom meetings this week, even done a Zoom Pilates class. We've had conference calls. There are a couple of members of staff that I FaceTime regularly just to keep that presence so that they know that I'm there, but also so that we can communicate together and have that sense of connection. But we could do it through letters, we could do it through phone calls, we can do it through text messages. We can do it just by being present on Facebook. There are so many ways that we can be present for people. The second thing I noticed is that Jesus noticed. When the woman touched him, he knew, he noticed that she was there, that she had done something. He noticed that the power had gone from him. And I think we're maybe challenged to notice when people might be in need. Now, sometimes that might be a direct word that God gives us to phone someone or to make contact or to pray for someone. But sometimes it might just be that we need to be aware of having our eyes and our ears open, even though we're in isolation, having our eyes and ears open to hear what God might be telling us. And the third thing that spoke to me was that the woman reached out. And this is perhaps the hardest thing to recognise in ourselves. We also need to be asking. Yes, sometimes God is going to provide those miraculous links for us, but sometimes we have to ask. We have to recognise that we need help, and we have to recognise that we have to do something about that. It might be that we ask our family, it might be that we ask friends or small groups from St Giles, or it might be that we actually need to ring the office and take up the support that's being offered to us. So during this time, let's be present both in making that time to spend with Jesus daily. Let's notice what God's telling us, but also let's be prepared to ask for help.